6:41, let's go through some of the headlines today with editor of Spike Tom Slater and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
But first, shall we have a look at the front pages of the newspapers today? And the Telegraph leads with Rishi Sunak facing calls to sack the Home Secretary.
The Mail reports on the PM being warned of a Tory mutiny if he sacks Braverman.
The Guardian also leads with Sunak facing pressure to get rid of Suella Braverman.
The Mirror leads with the Home Secretary's attempts to pressure the police into banning pro-Palestinian marches.
And the Express reports, like almost all the papers this morning, on the same political drama.
Oh, dear me. So there you go. Let's start, Tom, then with you on this one. What do we make of all of this?
I have to say, I find this all a little bit strange as far as we've had a whole week now of headlines which are just people taking offence to things that the Home Secretary has said, things that I'm sure she intended people would take offence to, so that we would be talking about her for a week. We've been kind of caught in this loop, and I think the fact that it's come to a head over a last article criticising the police for bias in terms of how it's dealing with protests is particularly strange, given of all the things she said over recent weeks and months.
Oh, the homeless tent thing.
Yeah, the lifestyle choice thing, the invasion on the South Coast. This is surely the least controversial bit. I mean, anyone who's been looking at how the police have been dealing with these protests, also just protests over the past couple of years, can see that some of them get a much easier hand than others. So I just think that even people who live and breathe to oppose Suella Braverman, I feel like maybe they're playing into her hand somewhat to clutch their pearls so firmly whenever she says anything, particularly something in this case, which is actually true.
But actually, I mean, Suella Braverman compared it to the Northern Ireland marches. And then when asked to clarify, because, I mean, obviously a lot of people in Ireland were very, very angry about it, said, oh, I don't mean the orange marches, which some of us might feel are pretty close to hate marches. She said, I'm just talking about dissident Republicans. I mean, that whole article and the fact that it hadn't been cleared by Number 10, I mean, she's just deliberately provoking, isn't she? I mean, frankly, this is, you know, she's one of the most important people in Britain. She's supposed to be keeping peace, actually. She's in charge of the police, right? She's having a row with the Met Commissioner, and when there are problems on this march on Saturday, it's going to be because she's got the right wing. I mean, there are now going to be fights, probably.
This is what worries me. Whether, I mean, and people have said, I mean, Ian's been in touch, morning Ian, says she hasn't lost it. In fact, she's the only one telling it like it is. Well, perhaps that's a fair point. But the way she's done it does mean that there is likely to be some sort of backlash, and as Scarlett says, you know, the worrying far right getting involved in some of this. Your Tommy what's-his-faces and all that. Yeah,
I mean, obviously we've seen an attempt for the far right to mobilise around this particular issue. Luckily, that's coming from a very pathetic, low base. And one thing that we're lucky with in this country is that the far right are very marginal and increasingly pathetic, as I suggest. I do think that some of the commentary we've seen in recent days about the fear of a kind of far right backlash, we saw it in the iPaper earlier this week, talking about that's what the Met's primary concern is about Armistice Day. I understand that, but on the other hand, if you think about the kind of deeply hateful, anti-Semitic and Islamist sort of messaging that we've seen at a lot of those marches, to turn around and think the real problem is that a handful of idiots might show up and, you know, try to defend the cenotaph, by which they mean kind of just show up to cause trouble, seems to me to get things slightly the wrong way around. You've got people calling for the destruction of the State of Israel, calling for jihad, chanting anti-Semitic slogans. And you think the worst thing about this is there might be a small, pathetic far-right backlash. That gets things slightly the wrong way around.
Well, we'll see what happens. Point. I mean, you know, it's any excuse for a fight. But, I mean, also the whole thing about the far right protecting the cenotaph, I mean, the march was never going to go anywhere near the cenotaph. No. It wasn't at the right time. It's been organised between the marchers and the police, right? I mean, and the British Legion, who, after all, are the people who sort of, you know, they sell us our poppies. They've said they want the march to go ahead. That's what these people died for. OK, well, look, on that note, we're just going to take a short break from you two just to remind you of the top stories at 7:45. And she's lost it and is out of control. The claims being made against the Home Secretary after labelling pro-Palestine protesters hate marches and accused the police of double standards.
And then British Steel, but Chinese-owned. As thousands of jobs come under threat from plans to make British Steel's Scunthorpe plant go green, we're asking what this means for regional employment and Great British Steel.
And a Home Secretary with no say and a police force given 16 minutes to enforce new laws. Some of the revelations from the COVID inquiry into the government's handling of the pandemic. That's Priti Patel giving evidence. And now new WhatsApp show Matt Hancock worried that vaccine safety systems were, to quote him, shonky.
Well, we've still got Tom Slater and Scarlett Maguire with us. Scarlett, you've been looking at the Israel-Hamas situation and the fact that we're going to now see daily 4-hour pauses. Not ceasefires, but pauses.
Pauses. And pauses in northern Gaza. I mean, I hope that also means they'll stop bombing southern Gaza. And this has been... I mean, Netanyahu says that... he hopes there's going to be hostage release. But actually, the Americans were trying to go for a serious pause, or ceasefire, one almost could call it, for some time, to allow the hostages out. And what's so interesting about this is that up until now, Israeli hostages were the most important thing. I mean, they would do a prisoner swap of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners for one Israeli soldier. We now have... I mean, you know, over 100 hostages, old people, children. I mean, awful. And Netanyahu still won't do that serious pause so that they can try and negotiate.
Hamas has given no indication whatsoever that it's going to release those hostages if there's a
well, it is no. I mean, that's what the negotiations are going on in Qatar is about whether there will.
Yeah, but they haven't. They're not moving on it, Hamas. I mean, the last thing coming out from Hamas was that one of their leaders, like sort of deputy leader, if you like, saying in an interview, "Well, we didn't target civilians on October the 7th."
I know. Well, look.
How do you take them seriously?
No, you take Hamas very seriously because what they're trying to do is to completely wreck that region. I mean, they knew exactly what would happen when they did that appalling atrocity. They knew that Israel would come back and bomb Gaza. They knew that thousands of Palestinians would die. Hamas knew that, and then they knew that all the other Arab countries would get cross. I mean, this was all about completely wrecking the region, right?
So how then is Israel meant to sort of negotiate with that? Well, I mean, if Hamas wanted to do something serious, they'd release all the hostages and then let's see what happens.
We know that Hamas is never going to do anything.
No,
like
Hamas
that.
wants an impossible situation, don't they?
And that's what I think that pogrom a month ago confirmed, was the fact that this was not about some national liberation struggle as far as Hamas is concerned. This is about effectively trying to a holy war against Israel, and they really mean it. I mean, this has been in their founding documents since ever they were created, insofar as they really see this as part of some sort of existential, nihilistic struggle. You can't negotiate.
No, what do you make then, Scarlett, of all those people in Labour, including now some members of the shadow cabinet, saying there should be a ceasefire? We want Keir Starmer to back a ceasefire, which he won't do.
Well, the problem is it's sort of pragmatism versus idealism, isn't it? I mean, one can completely understand. You look at what's happening in Gaza, you look at all the deaths, you look at those children, and you think it's got to stop. And then, you know, Keir Starmer says, well, we've got to do something that's going to work. And the only thing that's going to work is actually what it's the Americans who are leading on this. And
they're beginning to sound impatient, though, aren't they?
They are beginning to sound impatient. I mean, I think they are changing. They are. I mean, but also it's the same in the States, is that there are an awful lot of people going, look at all the killings in Gaza. And of course, I mean, you're absolutely right, Stephen. I mean, they're up against this group of people who, I mean, have no morals, who are just total disruptors.
Let's change tack slightly, should we? We've got a clip I think we can show you of an Oscar-winning actor climbing the Empire State Building, Tom.
Yes, this is...
For why?
Well, what was funny about this is that at first it wasn't entirely clear why Jared Leto, he was an Oscar-winning actor, but he's also the frontman of a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. And people in Midtown Manhattan just looked up to see this Oscar-winning star in this kind of orange jumpsuit scaling the building for no apparent reason. Apparently it's to promote his band's latest album, even though that came out a couple of months ago. So it's a bit of a late promotion, and he's tried to create some sort of tenuous link between You know, I've always found the Empire State Building so inspiring as to what one can achieve, a bit like our album. So it's a kind of a viral promotional stunt, but also one that refused to explain itself at first, which probably made it even more confusing for the people.
Presumably, this has all been like sort of approved and is wired up and all the rest. I mean, he's right on the very sort of.
It's
point
difficult
of
to
it.
see, but he must have a rope that he's hanging from, really.
He does. He seems to be sort of clamping himself onto things, and also I imagine he arranged for that helicopter.
Yeah,
To
That's
take all
true,
of that footage.
yes.
But yes, quite a strange sight for a lot of people when they.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Still, he's
for all
brave
the-
to do it, yeah.
No,
All
I mean,
the tea and China.
I was going to say that even though clearly it's been planned, it's as safe as it can be. I mean, I'd be completely terrified. You know, I mean, actually, obviously he's a braver person than I am. It doesn't have the
Slightly
same.
madder.
Yeah, absolutely, very
I
mad.
mean, only slightly.
He's done very well there, hasn't he? Gosh, did he get to the top? I presume he did. I don't know.
I haven't seen it
I
confirmed,
don't
but
see them,
surely.
yeah. But
Oh,
it
he's
looks as if-
51.
Wow,
Yeah.
He's 51.
51 and doing that.
Crazy.
I mean, because it must be, I mean, on top of the terror, I mean, it must be completely exhausting. I mean, to pull yourself up.
Be very fit to just do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Have we got time to talk about the how to get a really good sleep?
Oh, yes, we like
Well,
talking
yeah.
about
When you work in breakfast television, it's all you ever think about is how to get
Literally.
decent sleep.
Yeah, well, I also think that women of a certain age, everybody I talk to wakes up in the middle of the night for an hour or so.
Yes.
It's just completely mad. And people keep saying to me, no, you just have to take sleeping pills.
Well, and rather than fight it, I think you just have to get up and make a cup of tea or something.
Right, read your
into
book.
it.
Absolutely, no. So sleep is a real problem, and it does really get to me when you go, you know, how to stay young, sleep properly, and you think, yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
I mean, all
totally.
of us would. So what it says is that you should have a cup of coffee and a glass of wine.
What, together?
Well, no,
What?
coffee during the morning, wine in the evening, and then they sort of between them. I mean, I have to say, I'm somebody who, provided I get it right, which I didn't on Wednesday night.
Oh, yes.
Far too much. But I find that a couple of glasses, 2 or 3 glasses of wine, actually does make for a better sleep.
See,
I know this isn't supposed to happen.
I would pay good money, Scarlett Maguire, to see you staggering round the streets of London when you've overdone it like that. I bet that'd be worth anyone's money for TikTok.
I wasn't even staggering. It was waking up in the middle of the night and thinking, oh, my God.
Oh, what about
No,
What did I do last
fine.
night?
I was absolutely fine when I was there.
There's a whole article in one of the papers in the middle of the week about how to get a perfect sleep. And they say it's to have a hot bath and then go straight to bed.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I think that's
And
really
I think that may
good.
work, yeah.
Hot bath and the glass of wine together.
Yes.
Now we're talking
Yes.
You
about.
sound like a hot bath in the morning, because it helps me to wake up. then.
No.
Really?
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, but you're a bit peculiar.
Yeah, you are peculiar, Stephen.
I am peculiar, I can't deny it.
Oh, we'd love to hear how do you get a decent night's sleep? Is it a glass of wine? Is it something else? Or is it a hot bath? I don't know. I think we need to know.
Something else?
I didn't mean that. Stephen Dixon, stop it.
How, honestly, what I have to work with. It's terrible. Anyway, on that note, Tom Slater, Scarlett Maguire, thank you very much indeed.
Indeed.
We shall see you a little bit later on. Let's get a check on the weather for you this morning.